بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد باب كنس المسجد والتقاط الخرق والقضاء والعيدان وبه قال حدثنا سليمان بن حرب قال حدثنا حماد بن زيد عن ثابت عن أبي رافع عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رجلا أسود أو قال امرأة سوداء كان يقم المسجد فمات فسأل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عنه فقالوا مات قال أفلا كنتم آذنتموني به دلوني على قبره أو قال على قبرها فأتى قبره فصلى عليها صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد عدد ما ذكره الذاكرون وصل على سيدنا مولانا محمد عدد ما غفل عن ذكره الغافلون اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك بعدد معلوماتك. Tonight inshallah we will be doing the last session of this chapter about etiquettes of masajid, etiquettes of masjid or etiquettes of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there will be a few more headings and there will be few more ahadith that we will be learning about tonight inshallah, and they will also enlighten us with regard to some additional etiquettes of the masjid. This chapter is about cleaning the masjid. The word kans literally means sweeping. Now in our times, alhamdulillah, many masajid are carpeted. So sweeping is not really what we do in our masajid. Rather we vacuum the masjid. But those places where there is no carpet, even now what people do is they sweep the masjid. So the word in Arabic for sweeping is kans, and the person who does it is called kannas. So in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is how the masjid was cleaned. People used to sweep it. Now before I read the hadith, you probably noticed that I went through some names, starting with Sulaiman, and then Hammad, and then Thabit, and then Abu Rafi, and then Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Most of us are probably familiar only with the last name, which is Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, who is the Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And all the names mentioned before Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, they are not Sahaba, but they are known as the narrators of the hadith. So for every hadith that we have in our collection, in our knowledge, every hadith has a chain of narrators up to the musannif, up to the author of the book, or the compiler of the book. So there are so many books of ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and most well known is Sahih al-Bukhari, the book of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi was born and lived in the 2nd and 3rd century. He was born towards the end of 2nd century and lived in the 3rd century. So Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, the way he connects with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is through this chain of narrators. Every hadith that he has compiled in this book or in any other book that he has compiled, he has a chain of narrators linking him, connecting him to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or to the Sahabi. And this is very important. Knowing the chain of narrators will give us the level or the degree of authenticity of that hadith. If we don't know the chain of narrators, or if we know the chain of narrators, but in the chain of narrators there is one person or more among the narrators who are unknown, then the hadith has no value. The hadith loses its value, it loses its importance, even if the message is strong. This is how important the chain of narrator is to every hadith. And the chain of narrator basically gives us the names of all those people who have on first hand learned the hadith from their teacher or the person who is the narrator. So in this chain of narrators, there are 5 names before the Sahabi, which means there are 6 links between Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and 5 links between Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi and Rasulullah and Abu Hurairah radiyallahu. So it took 5 generations, perhaps, or 5 different people to bring down that hadith up to Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. And then, since Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi put it in form of a book, so although we still know how we link this hadith to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I know about myself who I learned it from, and then who he learned it from, and then who he learned it from, going back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we don't have that in form of writing, because there is no need for it. The authenticity of the hadith can be verified by looking into this chain of narrators that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi has mentioned in this book. So it's really, really important. Now, every name that has been mentioned here, every name has its own history. Every name represents a person, not only an ordinary person, but a scholarly person. And a person who's not known for lying, who's not known for cheating, who's not known for dishonesty, who's not known for deceiving, who's not known for sins, who's known for the good things, but not known for any of the bad things. Because in order for you to be considered an acceptable person in a chain of narrators, you have to have a good record. If your record is tarnished, if your record is stained with lying, with cheating, with backbiting, with sins, with sinful life, and with other traits of wrongdoers, your hadith automatically becomes tainted, automatically becomes tarnished. Even if the hadith in itself was the right hadith, was the true hadith, was the correct hadith, but because you became part of that chain of narrators, you devalued the whole hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's very important to keep in mind what these names represent and what is their standing in every hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because if you knock down these names, even one name, sometimes one name is missing, and the muhaddithin, they know it. And when they know that one name is missing from this chain of narrators, they say, from between this person, there was a link that is missing. And because there is a missing link, we don't know who that person was who's missing here. And since we don't know who that person was, that person could be a good person, could be a bad person. So that hadith is also devalued and demoted. So these names are very important in their in their standing in every hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. He says that there was a black man or a black woman. Now, this doubt that has been mentioned here is not actually the doubt by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. The doubt is in fact from someone who's after Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. So it could be from Abu Rafi', it could be from Thabit, it could be from Hammad. So the doubt is not from Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu because Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu was the actual witness. People who came after Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, one of them got confused. So when he was narrating the hadith, he said either it was a black man or a black woman. And this is how careful these people were in narrating the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you are narrating an incident from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have to be 100% sure. If you're not sure 100%, and you still attribute something to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, knowing that you were not sure, you may be one of the liars. You may be called and considered one of the liars. So in order to save themselves and protect themselves from that crime, scholarly crime, they would say either it was this or that. So they use the word out. And this is very common among the muhaddithin, among the narrators of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whenever they're not sure about one thing or the other, they mention both and they say it was either this or that. Even when it comes to the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they don't remember the exact words, they say either Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this or that, one of the other. So the narrator says that it was either a black woman or a black man. كان يقوم المسجد. He used to clean the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Masjid al-Nabawi. فمات. When his time came, he died. فسأل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, later when he found him missing, he asked his companions, he said, where is that person who used to clean the masjid? Now it is possible maybe the masjid was not clean for a few days. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam noticed some things lying around the masjid and he noticed that the masjid is not clean. What's going on? Or maybe he used to see that person every now and then, and since he did not see him for maybe a day or two, so he inquired. He said, where is that person? So he inquired about that person. So the Sahaba, they responded to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They said, Mata, he has died. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Afala kuntum adantumuni bi. Why didn't you inform me of his death? Dulluni ala qabri. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, guide me to his grave. Lead me to his grave. Where is he buried? Aw qal ala qabriha. Or Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, guide me to her grave, whether it was a man or a woman. فَأَتَى قَبْرَهُ. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to the grave of that person. فَصَلَّى عَلَيْهَا. And he performed prayer, and he made prayer on that grave. So this is an incident or story that you probably heard before as well. Now the other hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other narrations. Now sometimes one narration may come from one sahabi, but that same narration may come from a number of other sahabis as well. There are many ahadith which are narrated by multiple sahaba. So it is possible, like for example, all of you are sitting here and listening to me. So when you go back to your places, you could be saying that Imam said this. You could be saying the Imam said this. You could be saying the Imam said this. So it happened many times that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was addressing, and there were many Sahaba who were present. So every Sahabi later, whenever there was an opportunity or whenever he was asked, so he mentioned the story. He said, this is what happened. So now every story has its own chain of narrators. And every story is narrated by a different person. So it could be one from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, one from Anas radiallahu anh, one from Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anh, one from Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anh, one from Umar radiallahu anh. So multiple Sahaba could be narrating the same incident. And that gives us another aspect of the story, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's story was witnessed by not one Sahabi but many Sahabi. But at many times there was only one Sahabi who could witness the story of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is only him who's narrating that incident. But this incident is not one of those. This incident is one of those which was witnessed by a number of Sahaba, and it was reported by a number of Sahaba. So there are other reports narrated by other Sahaba which confirm that it was not a man, rather it was a woman. Now this much is unanimous and agreed upon, that it was a black woman who used to clean the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And according to those reports, her name is suggested as Mihjan, the mother of Mihjan. So Mihjan was a woman who used to clean the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this is something that has been abandoned in our culture, and in some masajid, in fact, the administrations do not even allow women to come and clean the masjid. And in many cultures, women think that it is too low of them to clean the masjid. So during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was the honor of this woman. It was not something that she looked down upon or others looked down upon, but she took this as an honor, as a privilege for her, that she was being allowed and she was being privileged to clean the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In other words, clean the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this woman regularly used to clean the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was a volunteer. She was not a paid staffer. She was not employed by the masjid or by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was a volunteer. So voluntarily, she used to clean the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on a regular basis. So nobody would notice that the masjid is kept clean by the effort of someone. So people didn't really pay attention to that. Even the Sahaba, they didn't really pay attention to that until she died. And when she died, the Sahaba, radwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, they quickly had her janazah prepared. Some woman probably washed her and they had her janazah prepared. And the Sahaba did not inform Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They themselves performed Salatul Janazah and buried her. According to some reports, this happened in the absence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was out somewhere traveling. So he was out of town. But according to other reports, it is mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in town, but this death occurred at nighttime. So this woman, she died at nighttime, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not informed because Sahaba did not want to wake up Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at nighttime and did not want to bother him. And they thought that it is okay since she was an ordinary woman. She was not some sort of symbol for Muslims, or she was not someone who was well known in the community. So some Sahaba, they thought that it is not as important to inform Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they themselves performed Salatul Janazah and buried her. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he did not find her for maybe a day or two, he inquired about her. He said, "Where is that woman who used to clean the masjid? I haven't seen her." So the Sahaba informed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, "Ya Rasulullah, she passed away and we performed Salatul Janazah, we buried her." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he disliked it. He said, أَفَلَا كُنْتُمْ آذَنْتُمُونِ بِي. Why didn't you inform me? You were supposed to inform me. Because whether she was well known or not, she was very well known in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She was very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She used to clean the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And her status in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was much higher than people may have thought about it. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, why didn't you inform me about it? So now, even though the time had passed, the moment had passed, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam still, he said, okay, take me to her grave. Where is she buried? So the Sahaba, they felt bad in their heart that they should have informed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they took Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to her grave, and there Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed for her on her grave. And in one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that inna hadhihi al-qubur mamlu'atun bi dhulmatin. And he said that these graves, they're filled with darkness. And when I pray for someone who's buried in a grave, then Allah makes light for them in that grave. Allah fills that grave with nur, with light. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed for her. Now this hadith has many lessons, and it tells us that we should never look down upon someone because of his profession, especially when it comes to the service of the house of Allah or the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter how low the job of someone's may be, no one should ever look down upon someone. We never know how high that person's status is in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this woman, although Sahaba thought that she was an ordinary woman, but to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she was very special. And look, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam remembered her. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not see her for a day or for maybe 2 days, he asked about her. He said, where is she? I haven't seen her. And this is another sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when you don't see someone, you ask someone about her or him, that where is that person? I haven't seen him. This is a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is known as tafqeed. When you don't find someone, when you're missing someone, you ask about them. Like for example, you come to masjid, and every day or every other day or every week you see this person or that person, and then all of a sudden you haven't seen him for maybe 2-3 weeks. So now it is a sunnah for you to ask around that, where is that brother? I haven't seen him for maybe a week or 2 weeks. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do that. In this case, he obviously did it. We see it in this hadith. But in other examples as well, there are other examples where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to ask about some Sahaba, that where is that person? I haven't seen him. Where is that person? I haven't seen him. So this is another sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to check upon your brothers, to check upon your sisters. When you find them missing, when you don't see them coming, maybe they are in need of help. Maybe something has happened to them. Maybe they are in trouble, and you can help them in one way or the other. So this is a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is also a responsibility of being the brother in Islam and being the sister in Islam. Next hadith is narrated by Abu Qatada radiyallahu anhu. He said that Anas radiyallahu anhu told us that there were 2 Sahaba from the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a very interesting hadith for all of you. You may have heard about this before or not. So these 2 men from the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one night they left from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after meeting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at night time, and it was a very dark night. Very dark night means there was no moon in that night. So whenever there's moon at night time, the night is not very dark, especially if there's no light pollution and there is moon at night time. The night is not as dark as it is without the moon. So Laylatul Mudlima means it was a very dark night, pitch dark, and there was no moon. There was no light at all. So at that kind of darkness, even for a person with very good eyesight, it becomes difficult to see what's ahead of him. So in this kind of darkness, these two Sahaba, they were meeting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, probably in the masjid or maybe in his house. So when they were done with the meeting, they came out of the masjid or the house and they were going to their house or to their homes. وَمَعَهُمَا مِثْلُ الْمِصْبَاحَيْنِ يُضِيئَانِ بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمَا. Now these Sahaba, when they came out after meeting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was very dark for them. And they could not see what's ahead of them. They could not even recognize the path to their home. And one had to go one way and the other had to go the other way. So Anas radiallahu anhu said that when they came out, it was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was one light ahead of one Sahabi and another light ahead of another Sahabi, kind of flashlight. But they were not holding it. It was just in the space, in the air. So there was one light in front of one Sahabi, another light in front of another Sahabi. So when one Sahabi turned on one side, that light also turned on that side. So that light was leading him. And the other Sahabi, when he turned on the other side, that light turned on that side as well. And this hadith is from Sahih al-Bukhari, which means there is no doubt of any falsehood in this hadith of Anas radiyallahu anhu. Yudi'ani bayna aydihima, and these lights was illuminating the path in front of these Sahaba. فَلَمَّا افْتَرَقَا صَارَ مَعَ كُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا وَاحِدٍ حَتَّى أَتَى أَهْلَهُ. So as long as they were going together, two lights were in front of them. And when one went on one side and the other one went on the other side, the two lights separated as well. Now this is long before the invention of flashlight or the electricity. Nowadays, alhamdulillah, we can have this miracle reproduced. But in that time, this was a real miracle. And this miracle was happening for these Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They could see the powers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their own eyes. So this hadith shows us the infinite powers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has power to do anything and everything. And according to Imam Ibn Hajar rahmatullahi alayhi, these two Sahaba, they were very young. And one's name was Usayd bin Hudayr and the other one's name was Abbad bin Bishr. These two Sahaba, they were meeting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Maybe Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called them to have some discussion with them, or they were discussing something with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for their own benefit. But when they left, this is what happened. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had two lights in front of them. The last is Babul Asiri awil Gharimi Yurbatu fil Masjid. The chapter with regard to tying or captivating a prisoner or an indebted person in the masjid. So what this chapter is about, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi is trying to prove something from the hadith or from the incident of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that whether it is permissible to tie someone in the masjid, and not anyone but a prisoner. So whether the masjid can be used as a prison cell for a prisoner or for someone who owes people money and he's trying to run away. The hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. He said, "Inna ifritan min al-jinn tafallat alayya al-bariha." That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that last night a jinn came to me. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the masjid at night time and he was praying. So a jinn came. أو قال كلمة نحوها ليقطع علي الصلاة. And that jinn was basically shaitan. And that jinn tried to disturb Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his salah. فَأَمْكَنَنِي اللَّهُ مِنْهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this power to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam temporarily at that time to capture the jinn. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam successfully captured the jinn. فَأَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَرْبِطَهُ إِلَى سَارِيَةٍ مِّن سَوَارِ الْمَسْجِدِ. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam captured him, Allah knows best how he captured him, but when he captured him, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, I intended to tie him with one of the pillars of the masjid. Why? حَتَّى تُصْبِحُوا وَتَنْظُرُوا إِلَيْهِ كُلُّكُمْ. He wanted to put him on display. He wanted to tie him with the pillar, so in the morning when all the Sahaba would come, they would see him, they would see the shaitan, they would see the jinn tied with the pillar of the masjid. فَذَكَرْتُ قَوْلَ أَخِي سُلَيْمَانَ. All of a sudden, I remembered the word and the statement of my brother Sulaiman alayhi salam, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. O my Lord, forgive me and grant me such kingdom that no one after me will have. وَقَالَ رَوْحْ فَرَدَّهُ خَاسِئًا. One of the narrators says, so when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam remembered this ayah of the Quran and this statement of his brother Sulaiman alayhi salam, so he let him go. Now this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is very interesting, and it also shows that sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give someone power to capture the jinn as well, and to capture the shaitan. Now according to some reports, this shaitan, he came with bad intention. In some reports, it is mentioned that this shaitan had a flame in his hand to burn the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he came to hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah gave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam power to capture him. And according to some reports, this shaitan came in form of a cat. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam captured this shaitan and captured this jinn. And once he captured this jinn, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to tie this jinn with one of the pillars of the masjid. So in the morning when Sahaba would come for Salatul Fajr, they would see something surprising in the masjid. They would see shaitan being tied to the pillar of the masjid. And this was for a lesson. So people would learn that no one should disturb anyone when he's praying. Even the shaitan should not disturb anyone when he's praying. And this shaitan tried to disturb Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not tie him to the pillar of the masjid because he remembered the statement of his brother Sulaiman alayhi salam that, oh Allah, give me such kingdom that would not be good for anyone after me, that would not befit anyone after me. So the kingdom of Sulaiman alayhi salam was unique because his powers did not only extend to the mankind, but it also extended to jinns. So he had power over jinns. وَمِنَ الْجِنِّ مَنْ يَعْمَلُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّي. Even the jinns used to work for Sulaiman alayhi salam. And the kind of work that jinns can do, nobody can do. So when he remembered this statement of this dua of Sulaiman alayhi salam, he did not want to hurt the feelings of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Because when Sulaiman alayhi salam would find out that even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did this, he had jinns in his captivity, it may have hurt his feelings. So he did not want to hurt the feeling of his brother Sulaiman alayhi salam. So he let go of this shaitan, let go of this jinn. Now, it proves the point of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi that if someone wants to tie someone in the masjid to a pillar or to a room or in somewhere, it is permissible and it is possible. And there are some other reports as well in which it is mentioned. But it is not the purpose of the masjid. But in emergency and in cases like this, the masjid can be used for these kind of purposes as well. And as this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions. Now, normally jinns, they don't show up in any particular form, so you can't really see them. Jinns, they are invisible creatures, just like angels. Angels are also invisible creatures. Now, jinns are made out of fire, and malaika, angels, are made out of nur. And both of these are light. Fire is also light, and nur is also light. So these two creatures, since they are made out of this material, light and fire, so they are invisible. But in some cases, both of these creatures have the ability given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take a form in which they can become visible. So sometimes shaitan can appear in form of an animal or in form of a human being, and he can become visible. And sometimes angels can appear in form of a human being as well, and they become visible as well. When they do take up the form of a human being or an animal or something, then they become visible. But if they are in their real form, then they are invisible to the human eye. We don't have the ability to see these creatures created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we know they exist. We know jinns exist. We know that the shaitan exists. We know that the angels exist. And in order to seek protection from shaitan and from these jinns, we read dua, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us, because Allah sees everything and Allah has power over everything, and Allah protects everyone. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Any questions? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد افضل صلواتك بعدد معلوماتك اللهم انا نسالك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم انا نسالك العفو والعافيه والمعافاه الدائمه في الدين والدنيا والاخره اللهم حبب الينا الايمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره الينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين اللهم استر عوراتنا وآمن روعاتنا اللهم احفظنا من بين أيدينا ومن خلفنا وعن يميننا وعن شمالنا ومن فوقنا وأن نغتال من تحتنا ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين جزاكم